Hi and welcome to this SOLIDWORKS tutorial. For this mini tutorial I've modelled some coins for 3D printing. If only we could 3D print real money. These are for my son's wooden toy cash register or till. 4 coins came with the original till, however they aren't age appropriate or safe for my youngest son. The current coins shown here are under 32mm in diameter. This becomes a choking hazard. Plus there were only 4 coins with the toy, which isn't many for trying to teach my older son about money. I'm going to show you how I modelled 2 of the coins and how I applied a custom DXF sketch to personalise the coins. I designed the DXF inspired by my boys, so there are 2 young kings on the back of each coin. Starting with the first coin, I'm keeping the design simple. Sketching onto the top plane, I'm sketching a 33mm circle from the axis. I can extrude this by 6mm mid-plane. Doing this makes some of my future features easier to do. All of the coins have been designed to be larger than 32mm in diameter. A standard small part cylinder which is used in toy safety is 31.7mm in diameter, so anything larger should be safe. I will demonstrate the tube later on. I have the tube modelled in SOLIDWORKS, which I use when I design other toys with small parts. Sketching onto the top face of the extrusion, I'm offsetting the face by 2.5mm. Then I can use the cut extrude feature. Select thin feature and change the dimension to 0.5mm and the cut depth to 0.3mm here. Sketching onto this face, I'm using the text sketch feature and typing in £1. To change the font size, I'm selecting this box here and font. Here I can edit the font type and size. For the height under units, I'm changing the sketch height to 12mm. Under curves, I can click to select the origin for the text. I wasn't too concerned about the exact location of this. I could then extrude cut into the face by 0.3mm. Selecting the back face of the coin, I can use Insert, DXF and browse for the £1 coin DXF file. Again, these DXF files have been pre-designed by myself to fit my coin sizes. Under the import settings, I unchecked the import as reference setting here and next. Then I ensured the import dimensions were on millimeters and checked the preview here and then finished. Checking the orientation, I want to rotate the sketch around. I can do this by selecting the whole sketch and using the Rotate Entities tool under the Move Entities drop down. I'm rotating the sketch from the centre point by 180 degrees. I export my DXF files from our vector software in millimeters and from the centre of the document it's in, so when I bring in my DXF sketches into SOLIDWORKS, they are already in millimeters and centre to the part's axis. The coin part is just a super simple model, so I'm not concerned with fully defining this sketch. Extrude cutting the sketch, I'm selecting this sketch entity and all of the facial details like this. These will all be cut as 0.3mm. Next, I use the fillet feature and changing the fillet radius to 0.2, I selected the rounded edges of the coin like this, on both faces, then the edges of the text, and applied it. For the edge texture, I sketched onto the front plane, and with the midpoint line sketched from the coin's midpoint edge here, a 5mm vertical line. Fully defining it, I can use the sketch for a sweep cut feature. For this, I use circular profile with a 0.3mm diameter. I can then use the circular pattern feature and select the circular edge for the pattern's direction and the sweep cut feature for the feature to pattern. For the £1 coin, I used 100 instances and applied it. I could then save my part and then resave it as an STL file for 3D printing. Moving on to the next part, I'm going to model the 50p coin. This is slightly different because of its shape. Sketching onto the top plane, I'm sketching a 7-sided polygon from the centre. Sketching vertically like this. I want the height to be 39mm. I can fully define the sketch by giving the bottom edge a horizontal relation. I then extrude the coin mid-plane by 6mm. I kept all of my coins to the same thickness. Sketching onto the top face, I'm offsetting the face inwards by 2.5mm. And using extrude cut, I'm using the thin feature again to create a 0.5mm cut by 0.3mm. Then sketching onto this face, I'm using the text sketch. Typing 50 here, I can resize the font to 14mm. If the font isn't where I need it to be, I can use move entities to move the text over and make space for a P for pence. Using a text sketch again, I've typed a small p and changed its height to 4.5mm. Then I can move the text in line with the 50 like this. From here I'm extrude cutting the text by 0.3mm. Moving on to the back face of the coin and selecting the face, I'm using Insert DXF and opening the 50p DXF file. Unchecking Insert as Reference and selecting Next, I ensure the dimensions are in millimeters and check Finish. This brings in the sketch for me to then highlight and rotate entities, which you can find in the Move Entities drop down here. I'm rotating 180 degrees from the axis point. But I then need to use Move Entities to move the sketch from this point, snapping it onto the coin here. Next, I'm extrude cutting this sketch by 0.3mm here, remembering to select all of the inner face details and applying it. Again, I filleted some of the coin's back face like this, and the front details, and the text by 0.2mm. Adding the texture around the 50p coin is a little different to the circular pound coin. To do this, I'm selecting the right plane and sketching the 5mm midpoint line along the edge here. I'm fully defining it. Then I can sweep cut the sketch with a circular 0.3mm profile. For this feature I used the fill pattern feature, selecting this face for the fill boundary and the sweep cut for the feature to pattern. I changed the pattern layout distance here to 1.5mm and applied it. To pattern the feature I need an axis, so sketching onto the front plane, I'm sketching a vertical line centre to the coin. The length of this doesn't matter. I can then use this line as the axis for my circular pattern and change the number of instances to 7 for the 7 sides, ensuring I select the fill pattern and the swept cut feature for the features to pattern, and then apply it. Finally, I'm adding a small fillet to the 7 edges of the coin by 2mm. I've used the selection toolbar to select all 7 edges quicker using the connected to start loop selection. Saving the part, I resaved this again as an STL file. I also modelled a 10p, 20p and £2 coin. I know the coins are of a safe size, but I do like to test toy parts against the small parts cylinder. So I just bring all the coins into an assembly, check the pin icon, and viewing from the top of the assembly I can select each coin and snap it over the cylinder. I can see that each coin is larger than the opening, especially as I get to my larger coins. So here is the final set of coins, printed by 3D Print UK in MJF PA12 nylon. I chose polished grey to give the money a shiny finish. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Thanks for watching.